This is the moment the internet completely lost control. A routine traffic stop turned into a viral explosion that nobody saw coming. A young celebrity, already known for controversy, gets pulled over for speeding, but what happens next turns this into one of the most humiliating public breakdowns of the year. Because when officers approach the vehicle, they don't just find a driver, they find a whole situation that looks straight out of a movie. A firearm on the dashboard. A refusal to step out. A heated standoff with police. And then, things go completely viral when the body cam footage reveals something nobody can ignore. A full Pikachu onesie. Yes, while being detained, the internet watches as King Harris becomes the center of memes, mockery, and non-stop commentary. The outfit alone turns a serious arrest into a global joke within hours. But the situation doesn't stop there. As the footage spreads, one voice jumps into the chaos like gasoline on fire: Charleston White. Known for his brutal honesty and even more brutal trolling, he doesn't hold back. Instead, he turns the entire moment into a full-blown public roast session, digging up old drama, mocking the arrest, and dragging the situation into an even darker spotlight. And now the internet is split. Some are laughing, some are angry, and some are asking the real question. How did a traffic stop turn into a worldwide embarrassment, a viral outfit scandal, and a celebrity roasting war all at the same time? Because what happens next takes it even further out of control. The situation didn't calm down after the clip went viral. In fact, it only got worse. Because the moment that body cam footage hit the internet, it didn't feel like a normal arrest anymore. It felt like a full public breakdown playing out in real time. Social media didn't just report it, it weaponized it. Every frame was slowed down, replayed, zoomed in, and turned into content. And right at the center of it all was the same shocking detail that refused to disappear from people's minds. The Pikachu onesie. What was supposed to be a serious traffic stop instantly turned into a global meme storm. People weren't even talking about the charges first, they were talking about the outfit. The internet did what it always does. It grabbed the most unexpected detail and ran with it until the entire situation changed shape. But behind the jokes, the real situation was far more serious than the meme suggested. According to the footage, officers had already clocked the vehicle speeding significantly over the limit. When they pulled it over, things escalated quickly. The presence of a firearm inside the vehicle changed everything instantly. Officers made it clear this was no longer just a traffic violation. It had become a safety concern. And that's when the command came: step out of the vehicle. But instead of compliance, there was resistance. What followed was a tense back and forth between law enforcement and the driver. The officer repeatedly explained the reason: separation from the firearm, standard procedure, safety protocol, but the refusal continued. Each moment added more pressure to an already unstable situation. And that refusal would later become the turning point in the entire case. Because once obstruction enters the conversation, everything escalates legally. But while law enforcement focused on control and procedure, the internet focused on something completely different: entertainment. Memes exploded everywhere. Clips were edited with cartoon sound effects. The Pikachu outfit became the centerpiece of jokes across platforms. Some people couldn't even believe it was real. Others treated it like the funniest arrest of the year. But not everyone was laughing. Because as the footage spread, commentary started shifting from jokes to judgment. People began asking how someone in that position ends up in that situation in the first place. The conversation slowly moved from humor to accountability. And that's where things took another turn. Because once the clip reached the wider commentary space, it didn't take long for bigger voices to jump in. One of the loudest? Charleston White. And when he entered the conversation, the tone of the entire situation changed instantly. Known for his unfiltered commentary and aggressive roasting style, Charleston didn't approach this like a regular reaction. He treated it like a full performance. Instead of focusing only on the arrest, he brought in history, past behavior, and personal criticism all at once. And that's when the situation stopped being just an arrest story. It became a public takedown. Charleston didn't just comment on what happened, he dissected the behavior leading up to it. He referenced past controversies, previous statements, and the attitude that had been circulating online long before the arrest ever happened. To him, this wasn't surprising. It was predictable. And that's what made his reaction so viral. Because while some people were laughing at the outfit, Charleston was framing it as a symbol of something deeper: recklessness, entitlement, and lack of control in public situations. Whether people agreed with him or not, his words added fuel to an already burning situation. And once that fuel hit the internet, everything exploded again. Clips of his reaction started circulating just as fast as the arrest footage. People stitched reactions together. Commentary pages broke it down line by line. Debates started forming in comment sections. Some people agreed with him, others pushed back hard. But nobody could ignore it. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about an arrest anymore. It was about behavior, reputation, and public perception. Meanwhile, the original footage kept spreading. Different angles, different edits, different interpretations. Some focused on the officer's commands. Some focused on the refusal. Some focused entirely on the outfit. And some tried to break down the legal implications of what actually happened during that stop. And that's where the legal conversation quietly entered the chat. Because once a firearm is involved during a traffic stop, especially when combined with refusal to comply, things can escalate into obstruction charges very quickly. Even if no physical confrontation happens, noncompliance alone can shift the entire legal direction of the case. But in the world of social media, legal details rarely trend as fast as visuals. And the visual in this case was unforgettable. A high-profile name, a police stop, a tense moment, and a bright cartoon onesie in the middle of it all. That contrast alone was enough to make it viral gold. But behind the virality, pressure was building. Because once a clip reaches that level of attention, it stops being just content. It becomes reputation damage control. And at this point, everyone involved knew one thing: this story wasn't ending here. It was only getting started. The situation was already out of control, but what happened next turned it into something even bigger than just a viral arrest clip. Because once the internet locks onto a story like this, it doesn't slow down, it multiplies. New edits started circulating. Slower versions of the body cam. Zoomed-in screenshots. Reaction compilations. And every platform was feeding off the same core moment: the refusal, the tension, and that unforgettable visual of the Pikachu onesie standing in the middle of a serious police stop. But while social media was busy turning it into entertainment, the real-world consequences were already stacking up in the background. Obstruction. Speeding. Firearm presence. And the escalation of a simple traffic stop into a legal situation that now required full attention. And that's where things shifted again, because commentary didn't stay online for long. It started getting personal. Once again, Charleston White stepped back into the conversation, but this time, the tone got sharper, louder, and far more aggressive. He wasn't just reacting anymore. He was breaking down behavior, attitude, and what he called patterns of entitlement. And that's what triggered a second wave of controversy. Because instead of people just laughing at the situation, they started debating it. Was this just a young celebrity making a mistake under pressure? Or was this something deeper, an ongoing pattern of behavior finally catching up? Charleston leaned heavily into the second narrative. He framed the situation as a warning sign. Not just an isolated incident, but part of a larger issue involving public behavior, influence, and accountability. And the way he delivered it? Loud, unapologetic, and designed to provoke reaction. And it worked. Clips of his commentary started spreading just as fast as the arrest footage itself. Some people agreed with him, saying the situation reflected a lack of discipline. Others pushed back, calling it unnecessary disrespect and over-exaggeration. But either way, he controlled the conversation. Meanwhile, the internet kept doing what it does best, turning everything into content cycles. Memes evolved. At first it was jokes about the outfit. Then it turned into comparisons. Then it became full-blown edits mixing music, sound effects, and captions like it was a comedy film scene. But under all of that humor, something else was building. Narrative pressure. Because now people weren't just watching the arrest, they were analyzing it. Why didn't he step out immediately? Why was the firearm situation handled that way? Why did the escalation happen so fast? And how did a routine stop turn into a nationwide trending topic? Every question created another layer of discussion. And with each layer, the story grew heavier. At the same time, commentaries started branching into family discussion. People began bringing up influence, upbringing, and responsibility, not just focusing on the individual in the footage, but the environment around him. And that's when names like T and Tiny started getting pulled into online debates, even without directly speaking on the situation. Because in internet culture, silence is never neutral. Silence becomes interpretation, and interpretation becomes narrative. So while the public was busy dissecting behavior, others were watching the legal side more closely. Because obstruction charges don't just disappear. And when combined with additional violations, they can significantly change how a case moves forward. Legal analysts in comment sections started pointing out that refusal during a stop, especially when officers clearly articulate safety concerns, can escalate things legally even without physical resistance. But again, none of that was as viral as the visual. The Pikachu onesie remained the anchor of the entire situation. Every repost brought it back. Every commentary clip mentioned it. Every meme recycled it. It became the symbol of the entire incident, whether people were laughing, criticizing, or analyzing. And that's what made this story different. It wasn't just a legal moment. It became a cultural moment. Meanwhile, Charleston White continued pushing his narrative harder. He doubled down on his earlier takes, reposted older clips, and framed the situation as part of a larger conversation about accountability in public life. He wasn't just reacting to the arrest anymore, he was building a storyline around it. And that storyline started influencing how people interpreted everything else. Even neutral viewers began picking sides. Some said it was just a bad decision in a stressful moment. Others said it was a repeated pattern finally catching consequences. The internet split into debates that kept the engagement alive far beyond the original footage. And the more it was discussed, the more the situation expanded. Clips started reaching unrelated platforms. Reaction channels picked it up. Commentary pages started framing it as one of the most bizarre arrests of the year. And entertainment pages pushed it even further into meme culture. But behind all of it, the real-world legal process was still moving quietly. Charges were being reviewed. Reports were being filed. And procedures were continuing in the background while the internet built its own version of the story on top. That contrast between real consequences and online entertainment became the most important part of the entire situation. Because what looked like a viral moment to millions was still a legal case for everyone involved. One thing became clear: the story wasn't just about what happened during that traffic stop anymore. It was about how fast one moment can turn into a national conversation, and how once the internet gets involved, no version of the story stays simple. By the time the situation reached its final stage online, it was no longer just a viral arrest clip. It had fully transformed into a digital wildfire that refused to die down. Every hour brought something new. Another reaction video. Another breakdown. Another meme. Another debate. And at the center of it all, the same moment kept repeating across timelines like a broken record. The traffic stop, the refusal, and the now infamous Pikachu onesie that somehow became the symbol of the entire incident. But while the internet was stuck replaying the visuals, the real-world consequences were already settling into place. Legal processing continued in the background. Charges related to speeding, obstruction, and the firearm presence were now part of an official case file. What started as a stop for speeding had escalated into something far more serious once compliance turned into resistance. And that single decision, refusing to step out, became the turning point that defined everything that followed. Online, however, the story had taken on a life of its own. Memes evolved into full narratives. Some edits turned the footage into comedy skits. Others turned it into dramatic reenactments. And commentary channels began framing it like a cautionary tale about fame, behavior, and consequences. But the loudest voice still shaping the conversation was Charleston White. Because even after the initial wave of reactions, he didn't let the topic fade. Instead, he kept revisiting it, adding commentary layers, referencing old behavior patterns, and reinforcing his interpretation of the situation as something deeper than just a mistake. In his framing, this wasn't random. It was predictable. And that's exactly what kept his clips circulating. Every time the internet started to calm down, another Charleston White clip would resurface and push the conversation right back to the top. Whether people agreed with him or not didn't matter, his presence kept the story alive. But the internet itself had now split into three major camps. One group treated it as pure entertainment. They were focused on memes, jokes, and the absurd contrast of a serious arrest happening alongside a cartoon outfit. Another group focused on accountability. They saw the situation as a reminder that actions have consequences, regardless of fame or family background. And the third group? They were focused on context, trying to understand how the situation escalated so quickly from a routine stop into a viral national debate. That division kept engagement at an all-time high. But underneath all of it, something important was happening. The narrative was no longer controlled by a single video. It had become layered. The arrest clip was layer 1. The bodycam footage was layer 2. The memes and edits were layer 3. The commentary wars were layer 4. And the legal discussion forming in the background was layer 5. Each layer added complexity. Each layer pulled in new audiences. And each layer made the story harder to simplify. Even people who didn't follow celebrity news were now aware of it because it had crossed from entertainment pages into general discussion spaces. And that's what makes moments like this different from normal viral clips. They don't stay in one category. They spread. Meanwhile, reactions from major commentary pages kept feeding the cycle. Some were breaking down officer conduct and procedure. Others were analyzing the behavior during the stop. And some were simply replaying the footage for shock value engagement. But regardless of angle, one thing stayed constant. The Pikachu onesie had become the defining image. It wasn't just part of the story anymore. It was the story, in the eyes of the internet. And that's what kept people clicking. But as the attention peaked, the conversation slowly began shifting again, this time toward reflection. People started asking harder questions. Was this avoidable? Could compliance have changed everything? Was the internet exaggerating the humor while ignoring the seriousness? Or was this just another example of how modern fame turns private mistakes into public spectacle instantly? Even comment sections became debate forums. And through all of it, Charleston White's commentary continued to act like a spark plug, keeping emotional reactions alive on both sides. But eventually, even viral cycles start to slow. The edits stopped evolving. The memes stabilized. The commentary turned repetitive. And the story began settling into its final form in public perception. Not forgotten, but categorized. A viral arrest moment. A controversial reaction cycle. A case study in internet amplification. And as the dust started to settle, one thing became clear. The internet doesn't just report moments anymore, it transforms them. A traffic stop became entertainment. A refusal became controversy. A onesie became a global symbol. And a single incident became a multi-layered digital event that will be referenced long after the initial shock fades. Because in today's world, it's not just what happens that matters. It's what the internet decides it becomes. And this one? It became unforgettable. And just like that, this whole situation goes from a simple traffic stop to one of the most talked about viral moments online. Now the real question is, what do you think about everything that went down? Was this just a bad decision that got blown out of proportion by the internet? Or is this a clear example of how ignoring authority and making the wrong moves can turn a small situation into a nationwide headline? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is not slowing down anytime soon. And honestly, the internet is split right now. Some people are laughing at the memes. Some are focusing on the seriousness of the charges, and others are pointing fingers at how quickly things escalated. But one thing is clear, everybody has an opinion on this case. Also, don't forget to like this video if you enjoy deep breakdowns like this, where we don't just show the story, we break it down layer by layer so you understand what really happened behind the headlines. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell because we cover the latest viral drama, celebrity moments, and breaking stories that everyone is talking about, but with real breakdowns and no missing details. And share this video with someone who needs to see how quickly a situation can spiral when everything hits the internet at once. Because in today's world, one moment can change everything. Stay tuned, because the next update on this story might be even crazier than this one.